Joe Hart. So we'll see, keep them coming in.
And your interest, Lucy, has been awakened in football there. I mean, that newspaper headline from USA Today.
Oh, it's New York Daily Post, I think, or New York Post.
And what does it say?
It does say something along the lines of 1-1, the draw that we achieved with the USA on Saturday. But then it says USA wins.
Win 1-1.
1-1, yeah. Very
because
confusing.
they don't understand how it works, that it's a point each.
I think that's
maybe, or maybe just a draw was enough for them, and as far as they're concerned, it's a win. Anyway, very confusing. It's got us talking this morning. As far as the weather's concerned, plenty of cloud around, but skies will get better later, brightening up, some lovely sunshine, and generally, as the week goes on, staying mostly dry.
The analysis, thank you very much indeed. We now go to Charlotte for what's happening everywhere else, and at the World Cup there's been trouble, but not supporters who have been causing it.
No, thanks, Damon. It's armed police in South Africa who fired tear gas and rubber bullets at a crowd of demonstrators in Durban. Hundreds of security stewards had gathered at the city's World Cup stadium to protest.
News.
With that, we go to the front pages of the newspaper. Charlotte, thank you very much indeed for that. We should say Rob Green is all over the... Good to see you again. Sky News Sunrise on a Monday morning. Mr. Sam Delaney standing by to bring you the newspapers very, very shortly, and we're talking football to him as well. Charlotte with the news, and leading that news, new warning this morning. Thank you. Leave it there. Let's get a rundown of what else is happening. Then we've got Sam coming back, and he's talking about a whole new ball game at the World Cup for the England keeper right after this.
Thanks, Damon. Armed police in South Africa have fired tear gas and rubber bullets at a crowd of demonstrators in Durban. Hundreds of security stewards had gathered at the city's World Cup stadium to protect...
Rather than an astronaut.
What did I say? I didn't say an astronaut. No, I did not.
Yes, you did. I think you'll find
I think that's just the way I said it. That would be ridiculous.
I'm sorry about that, viewers. That was a bit embarrassing. But it was an asteroid, she meant, not an astronaut.
How awkward.
How awkward. Anyway, here's Sam Delaney. He's the editor of Heat magazine. And we were talking about the economy there just before we went to Charlotte and that mistake from her. But what about the mistakes made in the economy? That's what you're talking about now.
Well, Charlotte's embarrassing mistake this morning on the nation's favourite news programme only adds to the general sense of woe that surrounds this once great island at this time. I remember my dad, when I used to visit him in his office when I was younger, he used to have a poster. It was one of those ads you have for the Evening Standard around London, and the headline just said, "It's going to get worse," with no qualification whatsoever. I don't know why. It must have been. He's a morbidly minded bloke, my dad, but it feels like one of those moments in Britain right now, because you look on the front page of The Guardian and it says new forecasts show UK's finances worse than predicted. So all those predictions throughout the general election from the Conservative Party and the Lib Dems saying the economy was in a really, 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 really bad state, they've now come into power. They've set up their own new financial watchdog. And that's reported back and said, however bad you thought it was, it's even worse. It comes at a good time because it's before all of the sheer extent of the budgetary cuts and the tax increases that you were just discussing are coming in.
Which sort of makes those slightly more palatable is the wrong word, but we understand why we're swallowing the medicine, I suppose. Yeah,
I suppose so. Nick Clegg, of course, who went into the election saying the best way was to not rush into spending cuts and carry on investing in the economy in order to get it moving again and get businesses kind of ready to move on and rebuild an environment in which you can have jobs. I mean, he changes his tune from one day to the next, but he's in today's paper yet again, going back almost entirely on what he said, going back into the economy, into the election, and saying that these cuts are now going to be necessary. And, of course, this new watchdog are making it all the easier. But what with the football results, the economy worse than we expected, you know, it's absolutely Charlotte making gaffes like that. The country doesn't feel like a happy place at the moment. No. It should be. The sun's shining, the World Cup started. Yeah.
So let's talk balls then.
Yeah, let's
Jubilani,
They call this new Adidas ball the Jabulani, which is a Zulu word for celebration.
Tell that to Robert Green.
Tell that to Rob Green.
Although, do you know what? I don't think the ball bobbled and caused trouble.
There was no... It bounced twice before it reached him. It travelled in a fairly straight line. It bounced twice. He had all the time in the world. There was... I mean, to be fair, this hasn't just come out now before the tournament. There were some concerns being expressed about the World Cup football. Now, the truth is, you know, the World Cup football should be different every time, because if players get too used to it, we have less errors, and errors are what make football exciting.
Except missing the goal on the England goal on Saturday night. If you're watching on ITV HD.
Yes, on ITV. Now they have issued a grovelling apology, as reported in the Sun here. ITV HD. Everyone, just as the goal was scored, the first England goal for 4 minutes, ITV HD inexplicably cut to a Hyundai advert.
To which I, and a lot of people may have been the same as me, I shouted at my 8-year-old because I thought he flicked the channel. I thought he sat on the remote control. So I immediately rounded on him, as you do.
Yeah, I'm sure
nothing to do with him.
I'm sure lots of people would just express their concern by aggressively shouting at a child, Eamon. I'm sure that's the best way to respond.
Well,
in a
we
situation
thought maybe
like that.
they decided to split it up with ad breaks. But we're thinking, are there going to be ad breaks the whole way through? Imagine that.
I think of all you smug people who've got your HD-ready TVs going to their mates, come round, I've got a new HD telly.
Do you know what? That's exactly what I did.
I was keeping it real. I was like, come round, I've got a conventional LCD television, nothing's going to go wrong. I played it simple and my party worked out.
Well, so did ITV after that, because they came off HD and played standard definition for the rest of the match.
So I think that green era would have probably looked better in non-HD. I wouldn't have wanted to see it in any more detail than I did.
OK, now, after that, we've got Labour-grown...
No,
lab-grown.
You think that's an abbreviation of Labour Party? Let me just say before we get into this story that the Labour Party have not invented a way of growing livers. If they had have done,
Charlotte, that's my mistake now.
I was going to say,
what
has the world
if they
come
did that
to?
themselves, maybe they would have been more successful in the election if they announced that Harriet Harman had invented a way of growing her own livers, perhaps in her back garden. Unfortunately not. But there are scientists who claim to be able to do so at the Harvard Medical School. They take old livers of deceased people and they rebuild them using the cells of a living person to transplant into you. Amazing news for the booze hounds of the world today is that they can rebuild a liver and stick it in you and you'll be good again. Lilo, talking of booze hounds, on Daily Mirror, page 15, Lindsay Lohan, renowned booze hound herself, is pictured here with a special booze hound ankle, what do you call that, an ankle bracelet?
Yeah, it can be called an anklet.
An anklet, that's it. I knew there was a special term. This is a booze anklet for people who have got a booze problem, and it beeps every time you imbibe, which I think... But I don't understand how that would discourage you from drinking. If you like to drink, if there was a beep from your anklet every time, an anklet which no doubt the likes of Lindsay Lohan will find... extravagant ways of... I don't know. I have no idea.
I need one of those for chips and crisps and things.
Apparently,
instead.
booze goes directly to the ankle.
Just to make
I never
your
knew
mistake,
that.
her name's not Lilo, it's Lilo.
Lilo.
Anyway.
I think I write the rules about how celebrity names are pronounced. That's my job. That's my job.
New York Post, we finish it. Is this a joke, Sam? I mean, as an editor, have they put this in as a joke, or do they actually mean that?
This is a joke. I think they see it as a... You know, obviously the joke is they see the draw as a victory, because that's what the United States would have set out for, and they thought there was not any hope in hell of them actually getting it, but they achieved the draw. I don't think it's a mistake by the Americans. I think it's the Americans being very irritating, as they are very capable of doing. My poor cousin, who lives out in New York, emailed me this cover yesterday, and he said that, you know, no one showed any interest in the World Cup whatsoever and almost mocked the popularity of it over here in Europe, until Sunday morning, at which point his phone was inundated with gloating texts and headlines like this.
OK, Sam, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate that. Some breaking news with... Look how majestic that is. That reminds me of taking a bath. Seeing that. The great king of the jungle.
That's what it's like in your garden at home.
Well.
And you just make a noise like a trumpet noise out of the bathroom
Get
door.
on with it. What have you got?
England waking up this morning to an elephant. No, not really. To fears that defender Ledley...